maybe you possibly experienced a similar thing. This is the year that everybody I know, everybody I went to school with, is turning 50. It's kind of like weird because I remember these little people that I was in school with when we were 14 years old. We played rugby together. I remember all these little kids, and I remember what they looked like back then, and that's how I picture them. And then it's their birthday on Facebook, and then you look at them, and you know what, and then you're thinking to yourself, how are these people going to look? And they all look better than me. I think most of them are looking pretty decent. I think there's just one guy. I mean, you know who you are. He let himself go, but he's quite a big guy, quite overweight. But then that's me as well. I mean, people look at me and they probably think, Damon, what happened to you? You were, good God, you were like a Greek god. Anyway, now, God, you look like a fat Greek. Possibly that's what they're saying. Yeah, so next week is the big milestone. Wednesday, 1st of September, I'll be turning 50. I don't want any fuss. I've said this before, no fuss, just don't want any big fuss. But you know, the thing is, if you've got children, so I got a young daughter, she's 9 years old. She's very excited. She's very excited about her daddy turning 50, but I'm not. I'm actually a bit depressed about it. I'm disappointed. What have I done with my life? You look at this is the time of contemplation. You look at your failures, your successes, and then you look at your daughter. Okay, that's one success. Well done, I produced a child. Hopefully she won't be lying on a couch one day in the psychiatrist or the therapist office talking about me, but you know, that's inevitable. That will happen. She's already complaining to her teacher. You know what she said to her teacher? She said to her teacher that her father teased her and her mommy was very cross. Oh, so now we're expecting the phone call. Is the teacher... Our daughter tells us this. She's basically saying, she's looking at us, expect a call. Things have turned around since I was at school. When I was at school, you as the child, I was the one who got into trouble. Things have changed around. I don't want to use the term woke, but become, you know, quite... it's like things have turned around. Now the parents, you as the parent, you're in trouble. That's the way things are turned around. And it happens at home as well. You know, it's got to the point where there can be an argument or a disagreement, and my daughter would say something, and I'll say, well, this is actually what happened. The 9-year-old wins the argument. You know that? You know, when you got no credibility and you've lost all respect, and there's just when the 9-year-old is believed above me. So anyway, I got to pretend I'm happy next Wednesday. Daddy, what do you want to do? Daddy, what do you want to do on your birthday? And I'm thinking, I don't want to do anything. I really don't want to do anything. You know what I do every night? You know, I've got wonderful TV. I got a Roku. I can look at Disney. I can look at Netflix, Hulu, you name it. I haven't watched anything the last couple of weeks. I started watching the Underground Railway on Amazon. I got to the beginning of the second episode. Very good, but depressing, eh? The one positive is you think to yourself, you know, you're in South Africa, we had apartheid. At least I know, okay, other countries were also bad. That's the only positive you get out of it. When you see America had their slavery, don't criticize us. We had apartheid. You had slavery. I think maybe slavery was worse. I don't know. Well, we won't argue about that. Don't like when people argue about the one evil against the other evil. That's not, you know. So I haven't been watching TV at all. I just haven't had the chesach. I've been lying on my bed like from 7:30 in the evening. I lie back and I'm looking at the Twitter and I'm looking at the news. That's what I'm doing. And that's when I heard about then the bomb blast. Bomb blast at Hamid Karzai Airport. We all just call it the Kabul Airport. Let's just call it the Kabul Airport. Hamid Karzai is a bit of a mouthful, and I don't want to I've proven that I know it's called Hamid Karzai. So can we just move on? Kabul Airport. big explosion, and the details were sketchy. They said there were injuries, but no details. And before we even got details about that bomb blast, a few hours later, maybe 3 or 4 hours later, my wife tells me another bomb blast. I'm just about to go to sleep last night. At about 10 o'clock, my wife says another bomb blast in Kabul. And I went to sleep, because the details, it takes a while to get the details anyway. Woke up this morning, it was outside the Baron Hotel. In total, 72 Afghan civilians died. That is huge. To kill 72 people and 13 US servicemen, 9 or 8 of them were actual Marines, and the other ones were soldiers. I think Marines are different to soldiers. Kinshmanen, I don't know. But then on the news this morning, I'm watching I think it was, I think I was watching a news clip on Twitter, not CNN, one of the other guys. They're up to 15 to 20,000 people gathered outside that Kabul airport. So the bomb that killed 72 civilians and 13 servicemen must have been a reasonably big bomb, but not necessarily a huge bomb, because with up to 20,000 people in the area to kill 72 is terrible. It's a lot of people, and 13 servicemen. But it won't take much because you've got such a huge crowd there. Just shocking. I mean, am I going to sit here and give an analysis on Afghanistan? And they were interviewing the owner of the Baron Hotel. And I looked at this man, and I don't know whether he's in shock or he's just hardened. I mean, he's had this hotel since, what did he say? They asked him, how long have you been? I think he's had the hotel since 2004. It's the only hotel of his standard. Like, it's got like 440 something rooms. It's quite a nice hotel. Nobody in the hotel was injured. He just seemed so calm, eh? Just so calm. You were thinking he just entered his Afghan hound in the Best in Show at the Kabul arena, and his Afghan hound didn't win, and that was his level of, like, I don't know, people who have gone through experiences, they get hardened, they react differently. It's that whole environmental thing as you're growing up. Imagine growing up in Kabul. That country's been at war. It's been having problems since when? The late 1800s, the early 1900s. There's been wars, occupations, destruction, you name it. British, Russian, American, the whole ganze caboodle. That country, it's amazing. It's amazing that Afghanistan just isn't rocks and dust. So quite interesting the way the man was speaking, very matter-of-factly. He wasn't hysterical. He didn't go into details. He just said big destruction. Like, he didn't talk about the blood and the this and the that. He didn't go into that. And I think the reporters, they're interviewing him, and I think they want to get that out of them. So the question that is on my mind and on your mind, I'm sure as well, because I didn't know that the Taliban, not the Taliban. Well, we know the Taliban, that we discovered a few weeks ago that the Taliban's still around. Yeah, we discovered that. But ISIS is still around now. And they call this particular brand of, they've rebranded, well, this particular group of ISIS, they've rebranded, they called ISIS-K, and immediately I thought of, it's like a cereal, Special K. So these guys are called ISIS-K. It stands for Islamic State Khorasan, and they were formed in late 2014. And why did they get formed? What happened with them? Well, they kind of broke away from the Taliban. when they saw that the Taliban was negotiating and making friends and talking to Donald Trump and getting on uchika muchika, they broke off. So they regard themselves as the ISIS affiliate in Afghanistan and Pakistan. And just out of interest, Khorasan sounds like a place in Star Wars. Hey, you agree with me? It's a historical term for a region that includes present-day Afghanistan and parts of the Middle East and Central Asia. So they call themselves ISIS-K or IS-K. So the founding members include militants who they've left the Afghan Taliban and the Pakistani Taliban. So their association with ordinary ISIS, then let me see. Anyway, so they're ideologically different to the Taliban. In fact, they're actually enemies. So what's happening is this ISIS-K and the Taliban are fighting over Afghanistan for everything. So the Taliban, believe it or not, I mean, can you believe it? The Taliban is seen as maybe a little bit more soft. In fact, the Taliban condemned this bombing that happened there in Afghanistan. I spoke about beard oil the other day, and I was wondering, would all those Taliban guys use beard oil? And I thought about it, and I imagine if they're using eyeliner. These Taliban guys are using eyeliner, so I suspect they'll use beard oil. I'm telling you now, I imagine, besides their ideological differences, these these ISIS-K guys, they will not use beard oil. Question, who's going to win? Who's going to win? And the obvious question is what has happened I've asked this question over and over again, and I don't know, nobody's got the answer. What was achieved in this 20 years in Afghanistan? Can somebody admit that it was a huge failure? Obviously, it's a disaster, absolute disaster. It looks like Afghanistan's going to be worse than 20 years ago. Now, interestingly, President Biden, Joe Biden, US President Biden, he said we're going to hunt down these perpetrators of these bomb blasts. We do not forget, do not forgive, and you will pay for this. Now, that kind of is admitting, that's acknowledging that America is not fully leaving Afghanistan. They're not going to be pulling out of Afghanistan completely. They're going to be keeping people in Afghanistan. How are they going to hunt down these ISIS-K perpetrators? If you completely withdrawing from Afghanistan, then obviously something's happening. And what is the relationship? What is going on? What is the relationship between the Taliban and America at this juncture? It seems the Taliban are allowing these Afghans to leave the country, but then there are isolated reports of violence and oppression and victimization and kind of threats against these Afghans, these Afghan civilians who sided with the Americans, be they interpreters, be they the gardener, or could have been an Afghan hairdresser. Maybe you cut the hair of some of the service. Who knows? Who knows? And then Biden made a comment. He said something along the lines of, don't remember the previous president of America, referring to Trump, obviously. Trump released 5,000 Taliban prisoners back, I don't know when, 2016 or 2015 or. He released 5,000 Taliban prisoners. How about that? So Biden is like implying that this is all Trump's fault. Look, if Trump won a second term, oh my God, thank God not. What would he have done about Afghanistan? What would have Trump? That's an interesting question. What would Trump have done regarding Afghanistan? We'll never know. Thank God we'll never. Well, don't know. They say that no matter, I think it was, obviously this is a Democrat opinion, no matter the faults, no matter the mistakes that Biden has made, there's this feeling that Trump still would have been worse if Trump had stayed on. Kinchmanen, who knows? Anyway, so I've said this before. I'm not this geopolitical expert. I think, honestly, I don't want you. I hope you're not thinking that I'm coming across as this pseudo play political analyst. Really, honestly, I believe that I've just scratched the surface. I've hardly touched on everything. Honestly, that's my feeling. And okay, so I said last week that we're going to forget about Afghanistan. It's a bit early to forget about Afghanistan. We're going to stick with this story for quite some time. It's what an absolute disaster. It's what an embarrassment. I'm not even American. Thank God I'm not American. If I was American, good golly. But then again, I'm South African. Be a little bit better, maybe. You can't get driver's licenses. There's a backup in South Africa. You can't get your driver's license in terms of renewing your license and in terms of doing the test to get your license. I'm not surprised. Are you surprised? Come on. I learned how to drive in 1989. 1989, I got my license. January the 8th, 1990. I got it on the fourth attempt. It was difficult. Now, back then, you couldn't just book. You'd wait. You'd wait a month. You'd wait 2 months before you could get a booking to do your test. Now, those were the days where the majority of the people who were going for their driver's license, the majority were white people. The infrastructure, that kind of thing was mainly for white people. Let's be honest. Even then, the resources weren't so great. Now, the majority of the population, more black people, obviously, there's more people now who want to get their driver's licenses. And then I will pause because I need to go hold that thought. Oh boy. Yeah. The trick. So now the trick is not to run. So I was just saying that the trick is not to run when you're in that situation. Hey, what's going on? Why is it not recording? Okay. The trick is not to run. And I learned this years ago. I was in the newsroom and I can't remember the exact circumstances. But Ian Crew of Sholem, he had to run to the studio. Oh, he was late. And he didn't run to the studio. And I was a bit naive, inexperienced, and I asked him, why didn't you run? And it was very logical. It made sense. You don't run because once you get to the microphone, if you're out of breath, then what's the point? Rather do your news bulletin a minute later and you speaking nicely, you're not out of breath. That makes sense. So, in case you're wondering why I don't run, there you go. Okay, so now I've lost track, man, of my thoughts. What was I talking about? Oh. So they're going to extend the deadline to get your driver's license. And I get the sense from the articles I'm reading that people are panicking. Don't panic. So you drive around with an expired license. First of all, you're not supposed to be driving much anyway because of COVID-19. I suppose, yeah, okay, maybe you're in a situation where you have to go to work, okay. But, okay, maybe I'm being selfish, just thinking about myself. I don't go around much. But in all the years that I've been driving, I can count on my two hands how many times I've been stopped to show my license. And half the time, the traffic police, the metro police, are not that excited. They're not that excited. They don't get all gleeful if your license is expired. It's like not a big thing. They're more interested if you've been speeding, or you go through a red traffic light, or you get in an accident and if you knock over a pedestrian. That's more serious. This is the Wild West, man. This is the wild South Africa. You get stopped and your license is expired. It's like, hey, next time, get it done. You know, this is what you do. When you get stopped by a traffic officer, metro police, you smile. Don't behave like you're guilty. Behave like he is working for you. He's looking after you, and you are a grateful servant. But don't do that. That could be patronizing. Don't put your hands together like it's like you in Shogun with Richard Chamberlain. Remember that? Sure. That just aged myself. You smile. Good morning or good afternoon. How are you? And oh, you want to look at my license? Oh, is it expired? Oh, is it expired? And you act, and I'm telling you now, 9 out of 10 times, you go. Relax. Different story if you haven't actually ever got your license. You haven't gone for the driver's test, you haven't actually passed. Different story. But as I was saying earlier on, I'm not surprised that there's a backlog. Because there was a backlog 30 years ago. And I can understand how many people grow up and I want to be a driver's license test person. How many people want to do that? So there's probably a shortage of these people. But I think they use traffic officers who have like almost retired. I think maybe, like they call them in, Sergeant Buthelezi. They just don't know. Are you interested? You've been a traffic cop now for 30 years. You're interested in doing the test? Yeah, it's pretty cool. Sit on your bum most of the time. That kind of thing. I think that's how it works. That's how it works. Okay, so that's the thing at the moment. My message to you, if you've got a driver's license problem, just relax, calm down. Spoke about Gerald yesterday. I need to give you an update on Gerald. Just in case you didn't know about Gerald. Gerald is a diabetic who we are monitoring closely because he's still in denial. Gerald is in denial. He contacted me a week or two ago with his story, with his drosha about his condition with his blood glucose levels and this and that. And he's definitely a diabetic without a question. Anyway, just so you know, Gerald has not got back to me, so we will monitor the situation. I'm not going to repeat this again just because it's boring. Just so you know, I'm just contextualizing. I'll give you an update on Gerald when Gerald gets back to me. Okay, so let's not complicate things. Let me think. I think it's a nice place to stop. Hey, what do you say? Okay,